There are quite a few video essays out there around writing, storytelling, and all that good stuff. But to be honest, the reason I actually started my channel was out of frustration with a lot of them. This is not a video to throw personal shade at anybody or anything like that, but it is a video to highlight why giving advice with a capital A may not actually be as helpful as you think. At the very least, it can be unhelpful, and at the very worst, it can actually negatively impact your writing ability. So in this video, I'm going to do three things. I'm first going to explain the problem I have with writing advice with a capital A. I'm then going to talk about the intent behind my own writing channel, this channel, The Author's Anvil. And then lastly, oh boy, I'm actually going to be a bit of a hypocrite and attempt to give you some of my own advice. As the clickbaity thumbnail and title of this video suggests, this will be probably the only writing advice with a hardcore A that I will ever give. I'm John from The Author's Anvil, and I really hope you enjoy this little video. So what's wrong with writing advice with a capital A? To be clear, I'm not just targeting other YouTubers here, but I'm targeting online courses and university programs and other random people who get on their high horse and try to tell you about storytelling. Essentially, the problem boils down to this. Creative writing is a hugely contextual artistic medium, and while there is science to it, it is far from exact. Let me demonstrate with an example. Let's say that you want to get better at dialogue, and you find a video that is trying to define good and bad dialogue. Let's say for the sake of argument that they're defining good dialogue as dialogue that drives the plot forward or reveals character, or preferably does both. I've seen one case where the advice giver was giving an example of bad dialogue, and they said something along the lines of, "Bad dialogue sounds robotic," and then they'll throw in a funny visual from the room or something like that to demonstrate it. And on the surface, this seems like really good advice, right? Of course you don't want your dialogue to sound robotic, as we just said. You want your dialogue to sound realistic. You want it to sound like it's revealing character and driving that plot forward. And you surely don't want your dialogue to sound monotone and rigid and clunky and like how I am speaking right now, because people generally just don't speak like that, right? Most people speak using contractions like, "I won't do this," instead of saying, "I will not do this," and so on and so forth. But let's think about this for a second. That's quite an absolutist statement to say that dialogue should never sound robotic, or otherwise it will be bad dialogue, because there are many situations where you do want a character to sound robotic. How about when you're literally writing a robot or android character, such as Lieutenant Commander Data from Star Trek The Next Generation? You know, one of the most beloved sci-fi characters of all time. While emotionless, Data is a fully fledged character in his own right, with hopes, dreams, goals, and autonomy. Brent Spiner does a phenomenal job of portraying his character, and part of the charm of the character is the fact that he speaks robotically. If the writers of Next Gen had followed the above writing advice, then we would not have had Data, and that would be a crying shame. Another situation that you might want a character to have robotic dialogue would be if they're being coerced, or under the influence of hypnosis, or going through a particularly stressful situation. Making a character's dialogue suddenly become robotic can actually be a very effective way of letting the audience know that something's not quite right with them. I could go on and on and on, but I hope, dear viewer, that you're getting the picture here. Nearly every piece of writing advice with a capital A in front of it has 100 exceptions, or can be demonstrably proved false by an example that breaks that rule. Circling back to what I said at the start of this section, this is simply because storycraft is very dependent on the context. And I don't mean the meta context, I literally just mean the context of the scene, or the chapter, or whatever is happening in the story that you're writing. I urge you then to have a keen ear or eye out for when somebody tells you how to definitively write. There are nearly always 1,000 caveats, exceptions, and examples that break the rule, and it is actually because of this fact that I personally adore storytelling so much. Because if there were these magic formulas that we could just copy and paste into our writing, then it would take all the fun out of it, and we might as well just put down our pens and let ChatGPT do the rest. But John, isn't your whole channel a video essay and writing advice channel, you amateur hack? Well, I guess it's time to defend myself. I made some clarifications about what this channel was in my recent 3K Q&A special, but I would like to expand upon what I talked about there. The current tagline for the Author's Anvil YouTube channel is "Fictional Musings for the Curious Soul," and I still absolutely stand by that. This channel has two primary functions. It is firstly a place for me to discuss why I like and dislike certain media, for example my recent video on Willow Rosenberg and my review of It's Okay to Not Be Okay. And secondly, it is a place for me to talk about elements of storytelling that I personally find interesting or I feel as though it's something that needs to be thought about when I'm writing. For example, my conflicted characters video and my how to balance tone video. With both of these functions, I do offer something educational, but I always try and frame it as something that is an inspirational springboard or as an exploration of a topic rather than hardcore advice. In my recent Willow video, I don't say this is how you should write a meek character who becomes mighty. Instead, I talk about what makes Willow Rosenberg's character work in this trope, and what we could employ in our own writing to make our meek characters become mighty. In the How to Make Conflicted Characters Not Confusing video, I talk about different chaotic characters and why certain ones work and certain ones do not. But again, the intent with the video is to offer just a few ideas or a few methods one could employ to avoid making conflicted characters confusing. This is the key to my channel. I want my videos to stimulate thought, discussion, and introspection within other writers. I want someone to watch my sci-fi tech video and think to themselves, oh man, maybe I should think a bit harder about my sci-fi tech and my story. I want somebody to look at my conflicted characters video and be like, oh geez, maybe one of my characters pulls a 180 and I kind of shouldn't do that. I want somebody to look at my superheroes and slice of life video and think, oh, that's a really neat idea, maybe I could work some slice of life themes into my superhero story. I do try my best not to give hard rules and how-tos, but instead just help writers explore other options or make them consider things that perhaps they hadn't been considering before. I go into this in a lot more detail in my Marriage of Subjectivity and Objectivity video. Please go check it out. It's honestly one of my favourite videos that I've ever made to this day, and it does go into a lot more detail about problematization in storytelling and the sort of things that we need to be aware of when we're writing. Maybe I should rename it and redo the thumbnail, however, because yeah, it's not amazingly clear what that video is about, is it? And of course, there probably are instances somewhere in my videos of giving absolute advice with a capital A. I'm not a perfect individual, and I probably have written something in passing or performed something in passing that has given that impression, and that is probably just a mistake. Moving forward, however, I really do want to make sure that this happens as little as possible. But having said all of this, and I am fully aware of the hypocrisy here, I would actually like to give you some hardcore writing advice with a capital A. And as this video suggests, these will probably be the only hard and fast rules that I will ever give you. Time to see if the clickbait was worth it. I'm not going to tease you any longer, I'm just going to come out and say it. Rule number 1 of writing is just to fucking write. Before you watch any writing advice videos or read any books about storycraft or attend a university program, anything like that, I urge you just to write. Write just a single novel or short story. Don't spend hours on intricate world building or character profiles or talking to your friends about the concept of a cool new book. Just fucking write. Writing is a fascinating and unique craft where you really can't understand how to write until you've written a lot. And I mean a lot. It's not like learning a musical instrument where you get a teacher who shows you proper technique from day one and you have scales and exercises that you gradually build up and that are certifiably proven to make you better. No, writing is a very weird medium in the sense that it is truly hard to take on advice until you've got something of your own to critique and comment on. Becoming a better writer, at least at the start, and absolutely what I'm still going through, involves you taking it upon yourself to struggle, to suffer, to cringe on your own thorough process of the writing. Your first few novels, your first few stories will almost certainly be bad, awful even, and that's good because you will learn a lot from that process, and the most important skill of a writer is perseverance. If you can write several awful novels and struggle through them and still want to be a writer after that, then you are a writer. Develop a writing habit by setting yourself a realistic daily goal. I work on my fiction writing for at least an hour a day, in which I target around 500 words because I'm a slow first drafter. I would start very small and see how you go, but the crucial thing is to do it every day as a habit. It is really like a muscle. Once you have that muscle trained, you'll be flying. As of right now, I'm writing my 5th book and doing this YouTube channel on the side, and I still consider myself a very amateur storyteller. So yeah, that's rule number 1. Just write. Rule number 2. Consume a wide diet of media. I hear often from people that if you want to write well, you need to read or watch the genre that you want to write in. And yes, this is all well and good, but I would argue that you should take this one step further and just generally consume a whole array of different stories. Some of the best stories I have ever read or watched or experienced combined different elements of different genres together. Firefly combined westerns with sci-fi thrillers. It's Okay to Not Be Okay combined rom-coms with psychological character studies. The list goes on and on. I challenge you to think of a genre that you have no interest in and go and consume a story from that genre. You never know, you might be pleasantly surprised, or if you think it's lame, then think of why it's lame and think of how you could improve it. Side note, but I would also argue that it's important to consume a variety of mediums as well. I often find that listening to audiobooks and radio shows is a really great way for me to understand sound and voice inflection. Watching film and TV helps me with a sense of scale in my writing and really helps me to visualise how characters are moving and how they interact with each other properly. Again, I challenge you to think of a storytelling medium that you have no interest in or you normally don't like, and go and experience something from that medium. Not only is it educational, but it also opens you up to a whole array of stories that you would never ever experience if you had that prejudice. So that's rule number 2, have a wide and diverse storytelling diet. And lastly, I would say that my third piece of hard advice with a capital A is to be consistent. Be consistent with that daily writing habit that I was talking about just now. Be consistent in the style and tone of voice of your story. Be consistent with the character's personality, wants, and values. You can write any character you wish and make their dialogue sound however you want, as long as they are consistent. You can write whatever fantasy or sci-fi story you want, as long as you're consistent with the rules that have been established within that universe. Be consistent and your plots will avoid having holes, your characters will be compelling, and your world will be immersive. Whenever you write a scene or have a character open their mouth, keep the word consistent firmly in the back of your mind. Does this mean that characters can't change? Does this mean that new technologies and/or magic systems can't emerge in your stories? Of course not, but these developments should naturally come about by different consistently written forces interacting with one another. For example, in Cobra Kai, we have a dominant mentor character training an impressionable submissive hero. The story naturally progresses to have the mentor character's confidence rub off on the submissive character because the mentor character is written consistently to be confident. And as we know from real life, confident people are much more likely to be the people changing other people rather than a shy person doing it. Or more simply, just think of a bucket of water being poured over a small fire. Water is consistently wet and fire is consistently hot, and when you have enough water, it will douse a fire. Two different forces are being consistently written here, but one is interacting with another one to bring about change. So there we are, folks. I hope this has inspired you to stop watching or consuming unhelpful content and instead go and write. Seriously, go and write. Do it right now. Go on, I dare you. Once you have a few stories under your belt, then absolutely go and seek some advice. You'll have a much better understanding of what is helpful and unhelpful when you have some experience under your belt. For now though, I hope you enjoyed this little ramble, and if you want some more fictional musings for your curious soul, and you want some creative springboarding for your writing, then go and check out the rest of my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.